Hello there, it's the Rich Lieberman Media Pulse for a Monday. We are live on YouTube. If you're watching us live, welcome aboard. If you're watching later on, perhaps a time more convenient for your schedule, we also welcome you aboard. Tell your neighbors, your friends, your enemies, your priests, your rabbis, your plumber, anybody that, like you, loves media. So it is Monday, boy, quite a scene down in Southern California on Sunday night, actually the last 3 days, but it intensified on Sunday night with riots and crazy things taking place. If you only can see what is the aftermath of downtown LA on this Monday, you'll understand that it was anything but tranquil, nothing serene in Southern California, which brings me to what I want to talk about today. Very vital. Oftentimes here, I've complained really, about the fact that here we are, radio wise, the number four market, and situations, news events like what took place in Los Angeles. Yet we don't have a news talk radio outlet, which I find to be an abomination. Quite an abomination, actually. When you look at other markets of our size, even Los Angeles, speaking of LA, still has KABC, as old and, shall we say, non lethal as it's become. You still have that outlet. New York, WABC. If you can make quality, then you can do an abundance of things. I've said here, the market is ripe for an operation. You don't have to have the old metrics. There are quite a few people, older people, I may add, who demographic wise don't fit the mojo, but they buy a lot of things. They go on vacations, they buy mattresses, they go to the supermarket at high end stores. They are a consumer unit of themselves, much like an audience deserves to be reckoned with. Well, these people deserve to be reckoned with, and they don't have a radio outlet. Yeah, they still listen to the what they call, including myself, the terrestrial radio. That is news talk. Still vital. And I don't care about present day radio. People still want to talk about the news. They still want to comment, particularly when we have big news events like what has happened overnight in Los Angeles. So let me give you a little background. The other day, Saturday to be exact, on the Saturday special at a station in Santa Cruz, the only news talk outlet in the, not just here in the Bay Area, but the Central Coast. On the swirling Saturday special, Jim Gabbert, you remember him, used to own K101, was so-called pioneer of FM radio, the whole aspect of stereo and how you can bridge stereo and bring a new technology at the time, which is what Gabbert did in the mid to late 1970s, even before that with a radio station, KPEN. But he did have K101. Then he branched out of K101, bought a television station, TV20, that little outlet out in the hinterlands on Silver Avenue. Got rid of that, made a pretty nice profit. Bought it for around $2 million, sold it for upwards of 180 to 250 million. I'm a little off probably on my math, but he made a handsome profit. Well, Gabbert is now nearing 90, still very lucid, very fluid, very non-90, like which non-90, like say that fast, which gives you an indication sometimes age is relative. But Gabbert has radio interests still in the Bay Area. And yes, he's more conservative, tends to be more fiscally, shall we say, privy to spreading his own wealth. Anyway, he was talking about media on the Saturday special, on the Zorling show on KSCO in Santa Cruz. And he was asked about the current state of radio. And he lobbed something out there that I found to be very fascinating and unique. He said something to the effect of, well, he could get a KGO-like operation off the ground, but he wanted an FM conduit sticking to his traits. Now, he didn't say it forcefully, but he said it forcefully enough to which I thought to myself, well, who has the financial gravitas, the capabilities, the wherewithal to get a KGO-like, I'm not talking KGO radio per se. That ship has sailed. You have to have different metrics. You have to have a different way of thinking about. But the concept is still the same. News talk, local, used to be live and local, which became a trite cliche. But Luckoff has the wherewithal. And supposedly, and I put that in supposedly because I don't know the parameters, but he supposedly is still partners with a guy who personally I'm not that crazy about, and he's probably not that crazy about me, but business-wise, a very respected individual who used to run KGO, and that's Mickey Luckoff, who was vice president of ABC, ran the radio division, mastered KGO, along with Jack Swanson, the programming exec, who spent half a century basically running KGO. Mickey Luckoff was the brainchild. They both were very savvy. It was a different line of ratings. They didn't deal with what they're dealing with today or even a few years ago. KGO was horribly mismanaged later in its sunset years before it was mangled to death by Cumulus. But at one time, it was a very powerful radio station, not just here, but around the country. Key people, personalities, news people, talk people, people like Ron Owens, Owen Spann, Jim Eason, Jim Dunbar. I could go on and on. Joe Starkey on sports, Monty Stickles. It was a powerhouse. And it was even great up until the end. And even in its latter day stages, as they began to screw with it, it was still a force to be reckoned with. But they screwed it up. They tried to do things half you know what. It didn't work, nor should it have. But KGO could have been saved, much like KABC was saved in Southern California. Now, it doesn't register much in the ratings these days, nor does WABC, which is owned and operated by a Greek billionaire. But they have had limited success. The fact that the Bay Area doesn't have a news talk outlet is preposterous in my book. So when Jim Gabbert was talking about the idea of having a KGO-like AM conduit along with an FM signal, an FM stereo to KGO, or a KGO-like operation, I became intrigued. And I also thought to myself, there are a few people that can pull this off. You have to have money. Obviously you do. But it doesn't have to be gargantuan. There are frequencies out there like the old KSFO, which is at 560 AM, currently dead air, and the old 610 AM, you all know that as KFRC, the top 40 juggernaut, which is now and has been for the last few years family radio, although at times the guy that on that radio frequency has been dead, literally, for years and years and years, And now they have family radio, which is basically a religious frequency. You have, folks, the means to get something started. You could do a combination of local talk and syndicated talk, not the crap that they have currently on 8:10 a.m., which used to be the KGO frequency, which they killed off, and is now something called KSFO 810. So they took two legacy frequencies and have turned it into a warehouse of crapola now. Gabbert has the means financially, the contacts, the gravitas, as I put it. Same thing with Mickey Luckoff. They have money, they have the contacts, they can pull something off. You could do a local talk situation, have a John Rothman on politics, have somebody, I'm just mentioning names. This is not anything official or set. It's just to use an example. Bob Sarlot. Pick your Bay Area personalities. There's still really solid people out there. Michael Swirling runs KSCO and other radio station templates. You get people like this, you put them in a room and you talk and you figure out the kind of money that's out there. You get investors. You also look at the current market standards. As I mentioned in the first part of this broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, you have a very viable, older, non-demographic friendly, but they are very, very pertinent and important. People, no such thing anymore as people in their 70s, early to mid 70s, as non-viable demographics. These are people that take a lot of vacations. They spend money. They buy mattresses. They go to concerts still, some of them. Maybe more Barry Manilow than AC/DC, but they go out. You get what I'm saying. They are very much together and concrete and spend money and go out to dinner and go to Whole Foods and shop. They're an integral part of the economy. I'm not saying that as an opinion. I'm saying that factually. How do I know? Because I listen to radio. I know the market that is out there. The amount of costs, I don't know specifically, but I think you need about $2, $3, maybe $5 million to plan. And you have to be willing, not necessarily to lose money, but at least break even. And if you do lose a little bit, at least you have a potential to be very viable and very financially okay. You could promote it. Speaking of which, there is a monopoly potentially because nobody does news talk. KQED, which really doesn't count here, does a local show in the morning, but they don't take commercials. They're not really thought of, nor should they be, as a news talk outlet. You have to have ads. Of course you do. But you have the people, you have a market, you have the Bay Area, which is near, of course, Silicon Valley, which is near a whole bevy of financial conduits. Luckoff, again, not the greatest personal guy, not a friend of mine, of course, probably doesn't like me. Geez, a lot of people don't like me, but whatever. He's contact-wise very tight with Jim Gabbert. Gabbert has financial means to potentially pull something off. So is the market out there literally and figuratively? It is. It is. Egos have to be checked. Ideas have to be formulated. You can meet and talk, sit down and discuss ideas. There's a bevy of talent out there where you can get a program from politics to pop culture to news of the day. Look at what we've been dealing with just the last couple of days, the ongoing situation, the riots, the protests down in Southern California. You had a year and a half ago the election. You have this whole political industry known as that Donald Trump, the current president of the United States. You have people out there that are interested in talking about the news. And when you have that, you have the beginning of what could be something very special, and something, actually, if you look right at it, would not be that difficult to conjure up and put into action. You just have to have patience. You have to have the want and the will to do it. Like the Nike as says, to pull a cliche, just do it. But first, you got to get the actors together, the players, the ones who count. Gabbert and Luckoff and other people, perhaps, can do this. I'm Rich Lieberman. This is Monday. Please, once again, become a subscriber if you can before a paywall, limited at that, becomes official here. Make a donation of $15. Become a subscriber to the Rich Lieberman Media Pulse. Go on my PayPal on the right side of the show. Click on it and go from there. You can supervise, you can subsidize this site. The only person that discusses Bay Area, national, and potentially international media like myself. Keep it going. Subscribe to my channel. Become a paid subscriber. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.